we go. Time to go racing. It all comes down to this. Who will risk everything for the win?
I love you as well. Kicking off the new year then with a bit of Monster Energy Supercross 3. They seem to come around so quickly, don't they? And here we see a bit of gameplay action, which will have spread throughout the video, looking at the new game. Immediately there are a few details and changes and updates in terms of visuals and suspensions and look of the courses, various texture details. I apologise for my riding here. I'm not terribly good at it. Kevin's much better at it than me, and he'll showcase some gameplay videos in due course. At first I just had to learn the courses, and it really does help to have the sort of flow line. Here you see female riders introduced to the game this year as well. Not much you can change so far. This is a very limited preview build, and there wasn't really much we could test in the game, but I've given you a brief look at the menus, a bit of gameplay. The gameplay as well was still quite early in this build. I await a newer build to show a lot more gameplay. In terms of, there was a few issues with syncing up audio for this, so you might occasionally hear the audio go out of sync. It wasn't working terribly well with the NVIDIA Shadow Play. You can see obviously you've got all the official riders in here, and we've got a few changes this year as well. Official teams, by popular demand, the player can now join an official team as an alternative to signing with a sponsor. That'll be welcomed, of course. And of course, female riders you've seen can also be created as a woman to be used also in career mode as well. You've got all your tracks, and of course you've got various training zones, compound areas, daytime, and of course when you ride at the tracks it's during daytime as well, just to give it a bit of visual variance. In a way, this kind of brings in a little bit of MXGP vibe to it as well, and you can't help but feel there's certainly an influence there, though I personally have felt this to be quite a bit better than the recent MXGP game, just in terms of look, feel and suspension movement. So they've given a wealth of tracks. I mean, there's only so much they can do in terms of an official game, and I haven't had a chance to test all the tracks. This build didn't include wet weather either, so as I say, it is still what you're seeing in this is still very early at the moment, and we'll play this again once we get a later build and put a bit more time into it as well. Of course, there's more options depending on, when you're doing a race mode, or various different modes in there as well. I've tried with the standard and the advanced physics. In a way, I felt much more comfortable riding. So I think here you see me riding with standard, but I actually felt more comfortable riding with the advanced. The bike feels a bit more loose, moves around its suspension. Yes, it is very easy to fall off the bike. Is it easier to fall off than last year? I think it is. Various little improvements to graphics there in terms of the lighting and look, and of course improvements have also been made to the custom track editor. Numerous small improvements. Apparently we haven't seen them. The track editor isn't on this build, but apparently you can add more fireworks, which should look lovely. Look forward to seeing how that all looks, and we'll hope to see that on a later build. We'll try it out, make a video on it and show you guys what it's all about. I had a quick look at just in terms of graphical details. I always like to look at the photo mode. I always think it shows the wealth of detail that's going into the game, as it has done in previous versions as well. Really nice to see. Get some great photos of all of your action, but also really highlights the various details in the rider models. You can just see that here. I don't know, I think it's really nice looking at the details up close, the way the technology's improved, and as we look forward to a new generation of consoles, we're going to see this improve more and more and more. I think obviously the models are there now in terms of their detail. I mean, there's various small elements, but they look fantastic now. I think the next step really going to be is in fluidity and rider animation. It's clear to see that in this game as well they're making improvements there. Getting those physics right is always tricky. I thought I'd just do a quick comparison at the same circuit, just between Supercross 2 and 3. You can see the various lighting changes, both running on the PC version. Here again, apologise for my riding, I just jumped on one to the other, and it was weird going to 2 after playing a bit of 3. 3 does feel a bit fluid, but also the courses are slightly different, so there are changes to the lumps and bumps where you take off, and getting your speed just right. It's very tricky, and I'll get back to that in just a moment. But you can see the difference in terms of lighting, look. It's a bit sharper, a bit more realistic now in many respects. It was more yellowy last year, surprisingly. I happen to think all these games look pretty good. I've always been impressed on the PC version in particular with how they look. the 60 frames adds so much over the 30 frames per second of console, and you can see just everything in terms of lighting, look and feel. Steps forward have been made. Now I know a lot of you core area that you're going to be looking at is of course physics, and apparently they have been putting a lot of work into the physics. Again, that's something that Kevin will go into in more detail because he has a lot more feel for it. I find that learning the courses is the first thing, and then it's getting your speed right, but knowing when to assess when you... The big struggle is knowing when to assess when you're going too fast and you need to a whip or a scrub. You know, all of this is about keeping the bike as low to the ground as possible, getting traction. The faster you are, you're faster when you're going along the ground than when you're flying through the air. So you're keeping the bike nice and low, getting traction, getting your takeoffs and landings just right. Once you get out of sync with one bump, you'll get out of sync with a whole selection of upcoming jumps, and then before you know it, you're falling way down through the field. Also, if you fall off once, and usually falling off is not leaning back on your bike, you know, your weight going too far forward and then you're coming off. Leaning with the rider is quite challenging. I think it's, again, there's a lot to learn with leaning, when to lean. I find that sometimes I was testing the lean and would oversteer into a corner, I just overdo it and go completely off. So it's knowing when and where to use it. It's surprisingly complex in terms of the physics and the depth they've been including, and I know they've put a lot of work into, as well as the bike, into the jumps and how the bike sort of works more fluid way through the air. So improvements then to the track making system, various small improvements in the game, and then of course there was this pointing out the detail going on to track deformation changes, physics changes, and again suspension, rider animation, movement, that kind of thing that's gone on throughout development. Lots of work gone into improving small things all over the place to make it the game, and really trying to listen to the fans and what the fans have asked for in various different areas. So I think it's going to be, for the average player, I think you can feel that there's improvements that have been made, but I think really it's going to be the expert players, the really top guys, and I watch the videos sometimes of the top guys playing, and it still amazes me just how good they are, how well they know the courses, how well they prepare the bike for every type of corner. And I'm certainly not one of those guys. I do watch their videos and they are on another level. So best place for me to practice, I'd always suggest to beginners a bit of time trialing, really get used to the course, and that's why you just try it out, got a bit of daytime, race around the courses, because when you get into the racing it's elbow to elbow, and I do find that the other riders can get in your way, they can cause issues, they can push you wide, they can, you know, which alters your speed exiting a corner, which then means you don't have enough speed, which means you hit the ground too hard, and before you know it you've lost 10 places. I found the races to be very tough, very competitive. I found the game to be a lot more fluid and playable in the advanced handling setting, and I really do suggest that those of you that play the game get onto that as quickly as you can, because it plays better. Obviously if you get on the power too quickly your rider can fall off. You've just got to be gradual and build your speed, and that's where the time trialing really comes in handy. Bit of multicam here. We might have a couple of full-length races once I'm a bit better at it. I think Kevin's going to do a couple of races as well, so we might have a couple of full-length races on the channel. Are there any particular tracks, bikes you guys would like to see? Do let me know, and myself and Kevin will discuss this later. But as you can see, lots of various improvements, as I say, physics, lighting, look, feel, various options, and also I think a couple of key things I just want to highlight as well. Dedicated servers now to help with the multiplayer. Really they're saying a more solid multiplayer, but I think dedicated servers, that will really help with so many bikes, there's so much going on. And of course then this builds towards perhaps sort of the eSports. Talking of eSports, there's a race director mode now, online dedicated mode to create, control and manage multiplayer races. Well, that really is all about the eSports. And so with dedicated servers and a proper race director commentary mode, it now means that they can really build upon the eSports aspect here, and you know, it's in the right place for it now. It's coming together, it's a solid product, and I think that obviously if they can just keep working on the feedback from fans, without adding too many gimmicks. You know, it's difficult adding a yearly update because you say, well, what more can they add? They've got all the bikes, all the tracks. What more can they add? And I think that every year they're trying to improve the product in every way without making gimmick add-ons. You know, let's see what we can do to really improve the player experience. I just want to add again replays. I've liked replays since the first game, as they have in MXGP as well. Replays look great, really nice replays all round. I like watching the replay as much as I like watching the actual races. I think they look stunning, and you can see that here as well. As far as I'm aware, a lot of the cameras are positioned in various TV camera positions where possible, and that will add to the action. And look at the physics, and you can see that as well, the way the bikes are moving, dirt's moving. It's all much more authentic all the time. I mean, you can see in the next couple of years, and when we move to the new consoles, it's going to look like real life. It really is. And I think, you know, biker animation, texture detail, dust detail, lots of improvements. And I've got development build in the corner throughout this because it is a very early development, and we can't look at all the different bikes and tracks and conditions and everything yet, but we will do on a later preview. So that's really nice. I've also got the handlebars view in the corner there, and you'll have seen the GoPro cam from the replay earlier as well. I don't know why I felt the old GoPro cam looked a bit more authentic from the first game, slightly different. It certainly does make you feel a bit more queasy now than it did on previous games. But either way, you can play it from however you like. A lot of people like to play from on board the bike. I don't so much because I like to see the bike and how it's behaving. But there's no doubt about it. I still think it looks pretty great from this viewpoint. And it puts you right in the action. And again, the PC version does look pretty lush running at that frame rate. So, quick overview then. You know, what are we looking forward to? Online features improved, eSport mode, dedicated servers, as it were, race director, female riders. We've also got an official compound now as well, so, and co-op, and I'm going to learn a bit about that on a later build. So there's still new stuff to look forward to on a later preview, but this was a first look, just seeing how the game is coming along. It's being released at the beginning of February at the moment. We've got a release date, I believe, of February the 4th. So not long now till we see an updated build, which will unlock the game, and then have a bit more discussion between myself and Kevin, who will be much better at it than me. But I do look forward to feedback from the sort of Supercross community. Let me know what you'd like to see in the final game in terms of your preview footage. Let me know where your concerns are and were on the previous games so that we can look at those in a bit more detail and put it all together. But that's it from me for now. That's been a look at Monster Energy Supercross 3, and there'll be more from me and Kevin coming very soon. Hello viewers, well thanks for watching the video today. Do like and subscribe, it supports what we do. Do become a YouTube member. YouTube Patreon supports all of our content you see on the channel, and of course lots of gaming from retro to modern games. I love it all in terms of racing action. So click on one of the two videos just there to find out more.